Caroline Richards with the Architecture Solving the Homeless Crisis. Hello and welcome. Good morning. I'm Caroline Richards and I'm going to talk to you about architecture and solving the homelessness crisis. So this is my quote, and this quote is really important to me because it's the basis for my project that basically says every person deserves to have a roof over their head and a comfortable place to live, and no one should be on the streets. So this is the basis for my project. And this is my internship. I interned with Mark Kessner at Henningsen Kessner Architects, which is in Charlottesville, Virginia. I was able to secure this internship because I've actually known Mr. Kessner since I was really young. We went to the same church for most of my life. And so I actually started talking to him about this internship a few years ago. And I said, hey, Mr. Kessner, my senior year, I'm going to have to do a internship, and can I do it with you? And so it was kind of a mentioning a few times. And then eventually when it came time to secure it, I texted and emailed him, but then I lost the communication because my phone went away. It didn't want to work anymore. So this is a picture of myself and Mr. Henningsen, who is the co-founder of Henningsen Kessner Architects. He did a lot of projects with me as well. And this was me actually looking through the Charlottesville GIS service, which is kind of like a stalking service for houses. You can go and look up a property based on who lives there or an address, and you can get the values. And because I could technically find where all of you live, I won't, but I could, and because Orange has one too. But so basically, you go through and it shows you the property value, who's lived there, square footage, and the main thing I was looking for was the setback, which is from where the building is to the property line in relation to the street. So for each project that they do, there's a range of setbacks that the new building has to be within. And so I had to go through and do the tedious work on this GIS service, measuring each setback. And it sounds easy on the computer, but the measuring was really finicky, so I'd have to redo it 100 times. But then I got the piece of paper and I did it there as well. So I had to take each measurement. And it was kind of doing their, grunt work they didn't really want to do, but I thought it was really fun and I enjoyed it. I was up for the challenge. And this was me visiting one of their job sites that they were working on at the time. They let me look at the plans the day before, and then they took me to the job site. And this is complete now. This is in Charlottesville. And I've driven past it a couple times. And so that's kind of fun to see the finished product now from when I saw it with this. And so for my research question, I decided to take my love for architecture and try to find how to use that to help our community. So I decided to research how to solve homelessness. So my research question was, what are the best ways to solve homelessness, and are tiny houses the best method? So I went through my research and I kind of created this rating scale. So from the data, so the higher bar, the better the rating. So so my kind of variables with my categorical data for stats, my stats friends. So it's based on low cost per unit, volume of housing, or is it a permanent solution? So I created this chart. And so the green is the permanent solution, the red is the volume of housing, and the blue is the cost. So the higher the bar, the better the rating. So these are the four different methods that I looked at. So tiny houses, Habitat for Humanity, subsidized Section 8 housing, and homeless shelters. So as you can see, the homeless shelters and the subsidized housing, the biggest problem with them is that it's not a permanent solution. So it's great for short term, getting people out of shelters and off the streets, but it's not a permanent solution. And they have a low cost, but and a pretty high volume of housing. But again, it's not a permanent solution. So then in comparing Habitat for Humanity, which I spoke to Habitat for Humanity from the Orange Habitat for Humanity and made some connections there. And I went on Charlottesville's website to kind of learn more about how they did things. And so Habitat for Humanity is great as far as a permanent solution, but it has a really high cost of about $80,000 as about a minimum for one home. And then as far as volume of the Orange Habitat for Humanity, I spoke to Cindy Reed, who is the president, and what they're doing is great, but they can only do about 1 to 2 houses per year since it's such a small organization. You can compare that to Charlottesville's, which does about 20, but in a different methods, there's like a tiny house village that could be 20 in one area. So and you can go upwards of that as well with a much cheaper option. So overall, the tiny house, I gave it the best rating for the low cost, the volume of housing, and the permanent solution. And the first thing that I looked at about tiny houses was actually on Facebook. It was a Facebook video, and it was Detroit's tiny house village. It was like a video about how they did things. This kind of inspired me to do this research. This is a picture of this village that they created, and it's a rent-to-own model. So it's about $1 per square foot, and it ranges about from like 200 square feet to 400. So that's per month for the owner, and eventually it's rent to own. So as they pay it off, they will own it. And another great thing about these tiny house villages is that a lot of times they have like community centers where the residents can get together and work in, and they also help build the other homes. So, and that helps go towards their rent. So it kind of gets them more involved in their community and civic participation, and really bringing them back from, having like no sense of pride of ownership. They are down, like feeling really down on themselves. And so it brings them back and helps them to, feel the pride and, what they've created, what they've built. So for my first part of my community service, I went to Navajo Nation, New Mexico this summer with Lake of the Woods Church, and we built a house. And this is myself and Pete, who is a native of Navajo. This is the house that we built while we were there. This is a picture of the framing of it. The foundation had actually been there since the 70s. And Pete, he's such a great guy. He would get the materials to build the home, and then he would give them away to people who needed them. So, and one thing to note about most of the houses in Navajo Nation is they're all, for the most part, pretty dilapidated. And some live in hogans, which is like the traditional 6-sided Native American housing. They don't use like the mud and the like thatch roofs anymore, but like they have metal roofs. But a lot of them also live in government housing. So when the government came in and pushed them onto the reservation, they gave them neighborhood style housing, kind of like a American suburb you would see today. Of course, it's not quite the same. It's much in needed repair, but they don't like to live that way. They would rather be in the middle of nowhere with their land and their, some hogan, but also some more modern houses, because they also have a lot of technology. They have iPads and TVs, and it's interesting because you walk into the house that on the outside it's like it's falling down, but then they have an entertainment center that has like a gigantic TV. So this was me sawing, and that was fun, but I liked the power tools a lot better. And I think I'm pretty good at them. I got to use the nail gun, and that was really exciting. And so this was actually the finished product of what we did that week. And so something else to note about this house is it is, again, like in the middle of nowhere. So it was up this dirt road, and we had these vans that were like Chrysler, like minivans. And every day we weren't sure if we were going to make it up, but we did. And so this is the final product that we finished in those 4 days. So it was about 16 hours in Navajo just building the house. And then this is the team that went from Lake of the Woods Church. We had a day off on Wednesday, and we went and visited Canyon de Chelly, and this is Window Rock, Arizona. And so for my second part of my community service / my legacy, I decided to take back what I learned in Navajo as far as, helping the homeless, and it really grew my heart for the people here in our community who were struggling and needed a place to live. One thing to also note about our community is we don't have a homeless shelter anymore. It was moved to Culpeper. So there are still homeless people, but they're not, many of them had to move to Culpeper. So I decided to create this organization called Hand Up Homes, which will create tiny houses, a tiny house village for the homeless. The plan, the timeline is to break ground like 2022. And then to have like a fundraiser in 2019 and to have a few fundraisers to get the funding. What I did is I built the website, and I also acquired some members, like some construction people, like Mike Phillips, who was the main person at Navajo. He is one of the main members, and he owns Turning Point Construction, which is in Locust Grove. And so he was a big part about helping me, form the organization and understand some of the different things I need to do. Like I will have to apply for a 501c3 before I can accept donations. So I have a donate tab, but it takes you to like the donate page, which then if you click donate, then it takes you to a survey that kind of says, hey, we're not accepting donations now, but we will be. So kind of fill out who you are and, why you're interested in our organization. So I also, for this organization, I created the model of the tiny houses themselves, because this is, what I love to do. This is the floor plan, the footprint, that this is where this whole thing started for me. When I was 7 years old, I would draw floor plans during church. So that's kind of where I got my start. And so this is the footprint of, it's about 360 square feet. So this is the main footprint. This is a more detailed like overlay. So you can see that it has a loft. It's one level with a loft, but these lines kind of show like this is one level on top of the other. So it's an overlay on top. And then this is a 3D front elevation. I did this in like an AutoCAD-like program that I have at home. The first one I did in Revit. But so this is the front elevation. And I also made a video, kind of a 3D walkthrough. Okay, so there's the 3D walkthrough. It might not let me. Okay, so my advice to the upcoming seniors is to take the challenges that your senior year gives you. I had a lot of family struggles, some things I didn't expect that happened while I was trying to finish this project, and it was hard to get to the goal that I set for myself. So my advice is to, through the challenges and through the things that come your way, to make sure that you keep your goal in mind and that you're doing what you love, so it'll motivate you to keep pushing through and to persevere. And then for my future plans, I am going to Virginia Tech to study architecture, and I plan to graduate and come back and not only work in the field, but also to continue my organization that will make a lasting impact on the people of our community. Thank you. Questions?
How much you need to raise to get something like that started?
So each one, from the design that I did, the program kind of gives me a rough estimate cost. And it was about $26,000 per unit. You can get it down cost-wise because that was like fully furnished for all the furniture that I put in that model. But so in order to get, I think I'm going to start with about 5, probably in 2022, try to get about 5 started. So, 5 times 20 is 100,000. So yeah, no, just kidding. That's not, but yeah. Okay, math.
And then how do you see yourself getting most of the funding? Because it could be mostly donations, or are you going to try and seek, some like taxpayer money?
I'm planning not to do taxpayer, trying to keep it like private. I think it'd be through fundraisers, donations, I think to like grants and apply for grants and things like that. So I think that's what I've been looking at as far as getting the funding. Any other questions? Yes, Griffin.
So you have a little graphic, like,
Yeah.
one of the bars is volume. Is that talking about like the volume, like how big, how many?
It's more like how many units there are. So like how many houses are in that like thing. Like I said, the Habitat for Humanity, they do about 1 to 2 actual units per year. And then like, tiny houses, you can put like 5 to 20 or however many you want in that thing. So it's per unit of house.
Like different plans. I mean, you could see a lot of these like 1-bedroom lot for single families, or like how would you accommodate a larger family?
Oh yeah, I forgot to hold this up. So this is the same thing that was on the screen. Yeah. But so I actually did another plan as well. That was it was a 2-bedroom, and that was about 900 square feet. So that was a little bigger. So I did that plan as well. I didn't bring that one in or put it on there. So it would just kind of depend. There. Right. Yeah, it has different models, different plans. And I drew one. I just didn't bring it in.
Do you do any research on how one would acquire land in a project like this?
I did some. Yeah, I know I'll have to go to like the county people and try to find, like, they have to zone it properly for that. So I have to get the zoning for that and find the land itself. So I did some research, but not too extensively.
Just at random. So that rent to own model, do they have like rules or regulations? And once you own it, like for like sale, goes on once they own it?
Yeah, so it's kind of like a Habitat for Humanity thing where what they do is once you own it, you like you have to still, I can't remember what she said, but you still have to pay, like, because what they don't want you to do is just to, like, they don't just give it to you. That way you can't just sell it and then make that profit. So that you rent to own it. And as far as resale, it would just be like go to the next person. They could sell it because it's theirs. So it would be an yeah, they don't own the land, but they own the home.